Welcome to another edition of One Door at a Time, Concentric Educational Solutions podcast, where we explore not just educational issues, but the issues facing Baltimore, but across the country. For the past, I want to say, 8 or 9 guests, the focus has really been on education, but principals and superintendents. I have the amazing opportunity to have a conversation from a native Baltimorean representing the 12th district, Councilman Mr. Robert Stokes. Amazing brother, has supported from the very beginning. We're going to talk about just everything that you've been through. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time, Councilman Stokes, for just stopping by, sharing all your wisdom about what you've learned growing up in Baltimore, what you see as some of the current issues, and what people can do to try to move Baltimore forward, particularly around the platform of education. So, you're from Baltimore. Tell me about what Baltimore was like growing up for you.
Well, I can give you the history. My mother had 8 children, 2 sets of twins. My mother struggled, but she never said we were poor. We never know we were poor. Mm-hmm. We always had a garden. My mother had watermelons, different kinds of food that she grew up in her backyard. Watermelon, cantaloupe, all that kind of stuff. So we had to dig up the yard. Okay. We had to put down the horse manure to fertilize the food. So that in itself made you appreciate, what your parents did, but how you appreciate the food is a commodity. Everybody got to eat, but everybody don't get an opportunity to eat, And in Baltimore, there's a poverty problem here in the city. And a food desert. Food desert.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I know is a major concern of yours and that you speak about. So you grew up in what period in Baltimore? What was your coming of age?
68 riots.
Wow, the 68 riots.
And 2 of my brothers was in the Black Panthers.
Okay.
So I used to hang out the window during the riots, and I had a cousin named Butch. Okay. Who was from Fort Meade.
Oh, wow.
I used to talk to him while we was ahead of curfew. But I had 2 brothers that were really involved in the riots, Black Panthers. As a matter of fact, one of my brothers, Edwin Johnson, who passed away, bless his heart, he actually sat on the stage with Louis Farrakhan. Oh, wow. Out Morgan, the last time he was out there. So my brother was real adamant about helping Black folks, making our own toothpaste with Malcolm at the top, our own toilet paper. So I know all of that history that I watched my brothers talk about. So that must have really impacted who you are as a person just growing up. What was Baltimore like kind of pre-riot 68 and then kind of post and what you saw during the 70s? Like, what was that experience growing up? Everybody knew each other in the neighborhood. If you needed some bread, some sugar, you could knock on the door and get it. Everybody, my mother used to cook and people just come and get them a plate of food. But back then, you knew who your neighbors were. Okay. Everybody worked together. It's a little different now because people struggle trying to pay rent, trying to pay mortgage. So the turnover of people and not just own a home, but paying the rent. The turnover back then, even if you rent back then. You were there. You were there, but you knew everybody. Everybody shared their food, shared their knowledge, Remember, we had to get up every morning and clean the whole block. Oh, wow. Okay. Clean block. So in the early 70s, mid 70s, up to what you're going through high school, was it pretty much segregated, Baltimore? Yes. Okay. I'm going to tell you this story my brother Edwin always said. He said, it's like a cup of coffee. Once you talking about busing Black kids to white school, it's like a cup of coffee. Once you put milk in it, it becomes weak. I had an opportunity to have a guest that we both know, Dr. Andre Bunley, and he was telling me his experience growing up in Baltimore on the West Side, and we speak about that. We speak openly about it. That while there were some disadvantages during segregation, there were some inherent advantages, and like how some of that dynamics kind of changed with the onset of integration. So as you're experiencing that as a young adult. Now you're going into high school. You went to the prestigious Dunbar, Paul Laurence Dunbar, right? The basketball powerhouse. Yes, sir. Like, what were some of the lessons that you learned in high school from Dunbar? Well, we had teachers that, I'm not saying teachers don't care, but we had teachers really pushed you, Absolutely. Teachers pushed you to make sure they wanted you to be successful, whether you was going to go to college or get apprenticeship something. They were very adamant about pushing you, making sure, and they always made sure that if you did something wrong, they made sure they told your parents. That was
absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
you know, I mean, I can remember one day, and I'm talking about the hair discrimination. I remember when I go to Dunbar, and they said I had plaits, and they told us we had, the principal called me to the office and said, you don't have them plaits, you got to leave the school.
Oh, wow.
So you know about the hair discrimination, the crown?
No.
They had a hair discrimination that passed in Annapolis, but I did it on the city council, where we discriminate against black women, not their work, but their hair texture. So I go back and look at Dunbar when they told me, well, if you don't take them plaits out of your hair, you got to leave. But I didn't even know that was discrimination back then.
Wow.
So now it come to fruition. I can remember that day. I had to take the plaits out of my head.
So now you're going through high school. You, your brother with the Black Panther Party, the riots, which, you know, some people say that Baltimore and some other large cities are just kind of recovering from. I spent a lot of time in Detroit. They're still having remnants of the riot. So you come through Dunbar. What makes you start thinking about public service? Because you've been in it a long time. Like, what kind of motivated you and crafted you into your public service?
Well, if you talk about high school, and part of high school graduation is they have to do community service.
Yes.
Like, I had to do that anyway. That wasn't a requirement in high school. My mother made us do that. And the only reason I say that, my youngest sister, my twin sister first ran for state central committee. And she won.
Okay.
My brother was a city councilman. There's only 2 council families in the city. The Kearns and me and my brother, that 2 brothers served on the city council of the whole city.
Wow.
But I remember my brother when he ran for House of Delegates, Edwin Jones, he'd say, come on, help me campaign. And I literally said, I don't have nothing to do with that. I ain't touching that. You know, that one time I went, it changed me as an individual, because my mother used to say, you got a nasty attitude and you're never getting away with it. But when I surrounded myself with people, positive things, it kind of took it out of me, that nasty attitude I had. So what happened was, I was like, you know, I worked for my brother when he's in the council a little bit, got to know people. I helped run some campaigns, you know, and after I ran campaigns, you know, I said, you know what, maybe I want to do this myself and run. And I'm gonna tell you, I ran for House of Delegates 3 times, ran for City Council 2 times, and 3 times I ran for House of Delegates, I lost by like 200-some votes. You know, you don't get your butt kicked, you want to come back and try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a journey for me. It wasn't like, I didn't get it easy. Where I'm at now, I earned it. I literally earned it because I didn't quit. I stayed involved. And I tell young people that when you run for office, you can't disappear for 3 or 4 years and come back and say, I want to run again. You got to roll your sleeve up and work with community, and they got to trust you. That's what I always did.
As you were going through those early campaigns, working for your brother, but then as you start thinking about going and running for yourself, going door to door, because we talk about, like, one of our pillars for Concentric is really just knocking on the door, one door at a time, learning from the mouths of students and from parents. What did those early lessons, just pounding the pavements, teach you?
Well,
or reinforce?
It taught me, first of all, we got to listen to our constituents. You got to listen to the community, because they got better ideas than elected officials. Sometimes elected officials think they know everything. We think we know everything. I learned about exactly what was out there, what the concerns were with our seniors, our young people, programming, after-school program for our seniors, and pathways for young people. Everybody don't go to college.
No, very true.
So
very true.
How do we now, I always use an example that the principal say, oh, I got 600 kids in high school, getting ready to graduate. But 400 of them are only going to college. How are we helping the other 200?
Absolutely.
And before the pandemic, I had a MOU with the school system, Baltimore City Community College, and Maryville, Emerson, Westside Skills Center, and Carver. Where we was gonna open up Monday through Saturday, 5 to 9, and create that apprenticeship, because you can't become a plumber, you can't become an electrician if you go into a class 30 minutes for 5 days a week, and then on weekends, those schools that are valuable to our young people, we shut the door on them because they close at 3:30. They don't open up on the weekend.
Absolutely.
So the pandemic came, so they kind of pushed everything back. So on the council, that's how I talk about it's apprenticeship training. We got to get our young people an opportunity. If you got the balance here, here's the college.
Yes.
It needs some balance here for apprenticeship training. And we don't have that right now in the school system.
No, there is a gap, right? Like, so I want to say I started in education late 90s. It was about college graduate, high school graduating, but then going to college. And we start really losing about the importance of the apprenticeship, about getting a trade. One, now we know back, we look back, you get a trade, you might not have the same amount of debt that you do coming out of undergrad, and you can't even get a job with all the with that pay gives you enough for a livable wage to pay back. And now with trades, like, so in taking all that, now you run for count. Now you run and you win. What is the difference from what you thought council was going to be to what being on council is?
I think me working for Kirk Smoke, working for Carl Stokes, it gave me some insight, and I know how the council work. I don't work, and I didn't go there macho, think I'm gonna change the world. You got to work with other council persons, but I always want to introduce or do legislation that's meaningful to people.
Yes.
When I vote, I make sure I vote correctly because your vote impacts other people's lives.
Absolutely.
So a lot of legislation I've passed has been good legislation. So I kind of glad I had those experiences because
you kind of knew what you were getting into.
Yes, I knew what I was coming up against. Yeah.
So what are like your three major platforms or that you really dive deep into your major concerns?
I mean, education. Everybody know that.
Absolutely.
That's the key. But how do we address the racism in the city? Not just education, and housing, and opportunities for young black men and women in this city, and I've said it at a hearing, and I say it. Y'all created this racism. Now you want to slap money on a problem that y'all created a long time ago, and it don't happen like that. That's why I keep trying to tell my colleagues, we have to be together when we talk about education. We have to be together when we talk about racism, because it's still happening. There's still things that need to be changed in city government. There's still policies that need to be changed in certain agencies in the city, and it has not changed. But I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm going to keep fighting for black people. Absolutely. And I don't apologize for being who I am and what color I am. And I will continue doing that, but I can't do this by myself. It has to be the council. It has to be the people in Annapolis. We all got to work together.
And you know, we share that common bond. We share the bond that we're unapologetic for. Concentric, we are a predominantly black organization. There is inclusivity, but we are a black organization. You can just look at, because those are the students that we serve. Those are our constituents. You know, when I talk to people about Baltimore, and you know, I'm not a native Baltimorean, but I love Baltimore. I've been here since 1999. There is, and for the fact that you're able to speak to it, there is inherent historical institutional racism that's in Baltimore. People would think like, no, you're a predominantly black city, like DC was. No, like there are those structures. Like, what do you think we can do collectively to try to really knock down some of those institutional pillars that keep black people?
We gotta look at some of the policies here in the city. We gotta look at those agencies, because I hear the agencies saying they use their favorite word, equity. Like it sounds good.
Yes.
But I don't see it. I don't see equity in the city. I don't see equity in none of these agencies. But we gotta go back and look at the policy. The policy has to change, because if you had talking about equity, my question is, well, who is your equity officer? Or you just gave the seat for somebody to warm up that worked in your agency.
Absolutely.
So I'm still saying that we still use this word, and black people use it.
Yeah.
Other people
absolutely.
use it, and I'm tired of hearing the buzzword. Where's our equity at? And I continue to say that at hearings and say it at the council, even when we did the meeting, hearing on Brooklyn.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The question was, where was the equity? We got black neighborhoods where they got all this crime, but we don't always have the same police service that other neighbors have.
Neighborhoods
have. So let's talk about the real conversation about equity. And right now, If we don't look at the policies in this city, I can scream and holler and talk about equity all I want. You got to look at the policies. The policies have to change.
So with the policies changing, and really the council creating those policies, how can we get more young people involved, particularly of the voter age, where they can start having a louder voice to impact what those policies are, particularly about the issues that they care about?
You know what's missing in school? Government.
Which is interesting. I was a government teacher.
Government.
Yeah, I was a government teacher.
The average high school person who the elected official is, they don't have a clue. So how can we expect them to want to run for office or be involved when we took that most understanding of government in the city school? When I went to Delaware, we knew who the Congress people was. That was part of our class.
Yes.
That don't seem to be there anymore. So when I talk to young people all the time, like, they only know who Chick Webb is. I mean, so if they don't know who Chick Webb, they only know their whole history. And you don't know who your elected officials are. And until we have them understand how important it is to know who your elected officials are, because you can be the face of what you want from our elected officials from the city. If young people speak out more, articulated what they want, you will see more of what the elected officials do in the city and in the state of Maryland.
Facts. So think about that. Let's try to tie that together about like the school system, what's being taught, how it's being taught, how things are being measured. COVID hit the world by storm, right? And it really exacerbated a lot of things that we kind of already knew that was happening in inner cities, and it just made those marginalized students even more marginalized, and even added more students to that. Where do you see education post-COVID? What is your biggest aim, and how are you pushing us, particularly here in Baltimore City, that we got to fundamentally look at education different? Because Lord knows, if I've been through, since I've been in Baltimore, I think 10 or 11 superintendents. I can't even begin to imagine how many with you. Like, what can we do? Like, what the hell's going on?
Well, I was watching CNN today. They had some African American studies.
Yes.
They was talking about Black history.
Yes.
Talking to Black young people about their own history. I think something like that need to be in the city.
Okay.
I also believe we need to look at our curriculum.
Yes.
Because sometimes I know parents, the kids bring their homework home to ask their parents, I need some help. Parents don't even know how to help them.
No, very true. That's very true.
And I actually said that to the school system, and they said, yeah, we're looking at it. Maybe you got to change the curriculum, not to make it easier, but make so the parents understand. And I want to also talk about the school commissioners.
Yes.
People don't know what the school commissioners really do. They have a number of programs to help the parents at North Avenue, but how many times do you hear that? Second of all, nobody on the council have ever invited them to the city council. They come before the council and say, can you explain what you do? How do you help families? How do you help students? That has never been. I'm about to do that now, because I think there's a disconnect between the school board and parents, because you can hear parents that feel like, and I heard them, when I go up to North Avenue, feel like people don't listen to us. So bringing the council, bringing the commissioners before the council, and it's going to be on Charm TV. It's going to be at 5 o'clock, and it ain't going to be at 10 o'clock. So people can come and testify, because I don't do things in the morning. So
and when is that going to be?
November the 2nd.
November the 2nd, okay.
Yeah, at 5 o'clock.
What do you think will come out of that?
Well, the understanding of what the school commissioners do, what their role is, and how they assist families and students in some of the, families have issues, addiction, trauma.
Yeah.
And trauma started for Black people way before COVID.
Way before, yes.
Trauma started
Absolutely.
We ain't have a market.
Yes.
Trauma started way back then when your kids leave out of the house and they got to see all this vacant property in front of their house, man.
Yes.
Because it goes back to systemic racism they created, and they only invested in the influential neighborhoods. So they moved the money around. when the money was for poor black neighborhoods, they said, we ain't going there. So, the trauma didn't start for black people because of COVID.
And one of the things that we're finding is like just when you're similar to what you said is that when you really honestly listen to students and families, they have so many more answers than what we think. A lot of times I think whether it be educators, professionals, even, politicians, we think we know what people want as opposed to actually listening to what they need. And if we listen to them authentically, they'll tell us. We just have to be willing to listen. So now this is a big year. Next May is the election. How do you see things playing out as far as the priorities for the city? Like, what are some of the top priorities that politicians are going to have to consider going into the primaries?
Well, one is crime.
Crime, yes.
One is crime. There got to be accountability to that. Second of all, we talk about a food desert.
Yes.
I have a grocery store coming across the street from Dunbar on Central and Lean Street.
Yes.
Right up here, you see the dirt, piles of dirt they put in the infrastructure.
Okay.
That's something I wanted to fight for, because if you go to the grocery store, I call it the hole in the donut. So people live in South Clifton Park, Dolly Park, Oliver, Johnson Square, Greater Greenmount.
That's right.
They either got to go to Boston Street or they got to go to 25th Street to go to the market.
Yes, yeah.
So you got this big hole in the donut. So now we have a grocery store that's coming in. And we have Somerset 1, 2, and 3, and 4 from Perkins. So the people that don't want to go back to Perkins when they finish, they got brand new apartments. You'll see them. But the market is right next door to this brand new development, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You wouldn't talk about Chick Web when I came on the council. They was going to make Chick Web, but why? I played ball in Chick Web. I said, y'all can't have that. So I made it historic in 2017. We just closed Chick Web about 5 months ago.
Yes.
$21 million when they open it up. Listen to this. They're going to have a recording studio in it. That's the stuff we have to have for our young people. Because you see our young people go down the harbor. Do you know how many rec centers they walk past? Because everybody don't want to play football.
Yeah.
Everybody don't want to play basketball. We have to listen to them and stop creating programs for them. Now on the council, on the budget, I asked for $2 million for more funding for each rec center. I didn't get it, but I got $800,000. Okay. So each rec center get additional money for programming. But the program, we got to sit down with our young people, find out what kind of programming they want.
And literally listen to them.
Yeah. Listen, not say, let's have another basketball league.
Yes.
That's all we talk about, football. We know that's great. We should have it. But we need to have a concrete conversation. And I even taught the Rec and Park School. We need to create rec councils. Rec councils have business people, the parents. I mean, everybody sitting in the same room talking about what kind of programming you want in the rec centers. I can show you some rec councils now. They work very well. But we don't have a lot of them in the city, especially in poor black neighborhoods. So we talk about a rec council. And that really works because you're bringing everybody together.
How do you think with crime, because crime is kind of always a major issue, what do you propose are a couple of possible ways to address it?
Well, I think it's a culture of violence right now.
Yes.
And former Police Commissioner Harrison said the same thing.
Yes.
I think the accountability has to be, we try to wrestle our way out of this. Yeah. But the accountability should be, we don't have to wrestle our way out of it. But there has to be some accountability and consequences for what you do. Yes. And I'm going to use an example. If you get caught with a legal gun, and you might get 5 years, you're going to think about that first. Yes, absolutely. And I almost guarantee our shootings will be reduced and our murder rate. But when you got a gun and you shoot somebody and ain't no consequence or accountability over there, that's the issue. And I'm not saying rest the young people, lock them all up, but there got to be some accountability somewhere. And we got to hold the parents accountable. Yeah, very true. I mean, even when we talk about the accountability, when we talk about, chronic absenteeism, students not coming to school, there's a host of some of the schools in your district we have, Hartford Heights, Danielle, former Principal Cromartie, did a wonderful job there, now on to IOED. We have Johnson Square, Margaret Brent.
Yeah,
Cecil,
yeah,
Dr.
Cecil,
Bernard.
yes.
And it's funny, they were going to close Johnson Square and Dr. Bernard Harris. And I was one of that fought the school system, because if you talk about the infrastructure of the school as a whole, we do the right kind of maintenance on the school so we don't have to.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
We do the advance so we don't have to do that. And with the community, I can't. So Johnson Square and Dr. Bernard Harris is still open, but they would propose to close.
Yeah, they were there.
Or you take the kids from Dr. Bernard Harris and send them to Johnson Square.
Yeah.
So,
and they're doing so much, like there's so much development around Johnson Square of what's happening. So going into coming soon into elections, what are just a couple of things that you would want people to know about your platform, about what you're running on?
Well, I'm still going to talk about education. I mean, that's the priority, because if you're not educated, you're not staying in school, you're dropping out of school. Absolutely. How do we now go and knock on those, like you do, and your company? How do we now go knocking the doors like your company do? And y'all are very adamant about going back. We have to do that. I did that maybe the first year on my council. We went and knocked on the parents' door to let them know school getting ready to start. We need to do that more in the city, because, you know, families going through a whole lot.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what people are going through. And some parents got 3 jobs. Some got 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Some kids don't have no parents at home.
Absolutely.
So you got to build that trust with them, with the young people. And
yes,
how we do that is knocking on doors and let them know that we care about them, that we love them. We need to do more of that. And I've seen that work on my first term on the council, because you get conversation, you get people to open up and talk, and then you can provide those kind of services that they might need. But you can't provide services if you don't know who they are and you don't know them.
Absolutely.
So that's been the education. Education, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about, I heard somebody say about parenting skills. I heard somebody say make it mandatory. How do you make parents mandatory? Parenting skills mandatory. We can't do that, but we have to find out how we get into those households to help them young people, because a lot of young people raising themselves.
Very true.
They don't have no parents.
Very
So
true.
again, I would go back to not when school get ready to start, but during the summer.
Yeah.
We need to knock on doors, bring the parents out, talk about education, you know, what kind of help they need in terms of the parents, because the parents could be having some issues too. So when your kid come home, you got your own issues, you can't help your own child.
Absolutely.
That's another issue. So
Absolutely.
Education, apprenticeships, I think that's part of education. We need to put more emphasis on that. We need to open these schools up that offer the apprenticeships and stop closing them at 3:30. You got to do that, you know. That's why the kids out in the street, they don't come to school.
Yes, absolutely.
There's nothing there interests them. And I did say something about the curriculum.
Yeah.
We got to go back and look at our curriculum. I ain't say make it easy. We got to look at the curriculum, because a lot of times, you know how they keep changing curriculum? Yeah. You know, they did the Bonics stuff one day.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's changed so much in my 24 years. So.
But we got to find a way for the school commissioners to really get down with these parents and these kids to help them. That's Absolutely. The problem right now. Education is it.
Absolutely.
Everything else comes secondary to me.
Councilman Stokes, I want to just thank you. You're always a voice of reason. You're an advocate, not just for your district, but all the citizens of Baltimore. Thank you for your lifelong service, your commitment, and just for taking the time to stop by. I just really want to, thank you so much.
Thank you for what you're doing.
No, we grinded along. We grinded along.
Concentric doing some great stuff, and I always talk about you guys, man.
No, I appreciate that.
Things, and you probably don't get the accolades, but
yeah.
But that's the real work that y'all do, man. Y'all do real work. So.
The grind is real. I want to thank everyone for tuning in for another episode of One Door at a Time, Concentric Educational's podcast, where we speak about the educational issues, but just the issues facing Baltimore specifically, but across the country. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Atlas Restaurant Group, 32 restaurants across the Maryland, Baltimore area and throughout the country. Just thank you for your continued support. See you next time, One Door at a Time. Bye.